All right, today we're going on a pretty incredible journey. We're diving deep into one of the most complex and, honestly, one of the most fascinating systems in your entire body, your digestive system. I mean, think about it. You take a bite of food, you chew it, you swallow, and then what? It just sort of vanishes, right? It goes into this black box. Well, today we're prying that box open. We're going to follow that food from the very beginning all the way to the very end. So, the best way to picture your digestive tract is to imagine this long, winding tube, kind of like a lazy river that runs right through your body. But it's not just one continuous river. It's actually divided up into a whole series of distinct, super specialized compartments. So how does your body keep all these compartments separate? Well, it's a lot like how a submarine uses watertight doors. Your gut has these powerful rings of muscle called sphincters, and their default setting is shut tight. They create these barriers that only, and I mean only, open when it's time for stuff to move on to the next stage. Okay, so our journey starts exactly where you think it would, in the mouth. The very first act of digestion is all mechanical. It's that simple but surprisingly clever act of chewing. So why do we even bother chewing? It's not just about making big things little. Chewing massively increases the surface area of the food, which gives your digestive enzymes way more room to work. It also physically smashes open the tough cellulose walls in plants, to get all the good stuff out. And maybe most importantly, it stops you from getting that horrible, scratchy feeling of a sharp chip scraping its way down your throat. You're not consciously counting your chews. Your brain just knows. It's learned when the texture is just right to swallow safely. And the crazy thing is, you're not even really thinking about it. Chewing is a basic stretch reflex that's happening below your conscious mind. Food in your mouth tells the chewing muscles to relax, gravity makes your jaw drop, that drop stretches the muscles, and that stretch makes them automatically contract again. It's just this elegant, simple, automatic loop, over and over. Now, once you swallow, you might think gravity does all the work, right? Nope. Your body doesn't just rely on that. A really powerful, coordinated squeeze takes over to force the food down. It's a process called peristalsis. Here's how this amazing reflex works. That ball of food, it's called a bolus, stretches the wall of your esophagus. That stretch is the trigger. A ring of muscle squeezes tight right behind the food, and at the exact same time, the tube in front of the food relaxes and opens up. Then this wave of squeezing moves forward, pushing the food along about 5 to 10 centimeters at a time. The source material for this explainer had this fantastic analogy for this. It's like milking a cow. It's that sequential, squeezing motion that presses the material forward. It's such an active, coordinated push that it would work even if you were standing on your head or floating in outer space. All right, next stop on our tour, the stomach. Now, we all picture it as this bubbling bag of acid, but its job is way more sophisticated than that. It's actually a muscular storage tank and a mixing chamber that controls the whole pace of digestion. To really get what the stomach is doing, you first need to understand that gut muscle is weird. It's not like the muscle in your arm, which is totally limp when you're not using it. Nope, the smooth muscle in your gut is always a little bit contracted. It's because of this constant, low-level electrical rhythm called slow waves. So here's the crucial part, how your body controls it. Think of it like a volume knob, not an on-off switch. Your rest and digest nervous system turns the volume up. It shifts that baseline wave higher, so it spends more time over the contract now threshold, and you get stronger, more frequent contractions. But if you get stressed, your fight or flight system kicks in and turns the volume down, weakening the contractions to pause digestion so you can deal with the emergency. And this control is so important because the stomach's number one job, it might not be what you think. It's not just about melting food with acid. Its main function is actually storage. It holds onto everything, which is now a slurry called chyme, and it releases it in little, tiny, controlled squirts into the small intestine. This makes sure that the next stage of the journey doesn't get completely overwhelmed. And that next stage is the small intestine, specifically the very first part, the duodenum. This is it. This is the main chemical workshop for the entire system. This is where the magic happens. The second that first bit of chyme enters the duodenum, a conversation starts. It's called the enterogastric reflex. The duodenum basically sends a message back to the stomach that says, whoa, 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 slow down. Give me a minute to deal with what you just sent me. It is a beautiful, beautiful feedback loop. So how does it do this? Well, it's got this amazing chemical toolkit. It has little sensors that can detect acid, fat, and protein. If it senses acid, boom, it releases a hormone called secretin. If it senses fat and protein, boom, it releases another one called cholecystokinin, or CCK for short. These hormones then travel through the blood, and they don't just tell the stomach to slow its roll, they also tell the pancreas, hey, we need enzymes and neutralizers over here stat. After that marathon run through the small intestine, we are finally entering the last leg of the journey, the large intestine, also known as the colon. Now, the main goal here is pretty simple. Get the water out. What comes into the colon is basically a watery slurry, so two different kinds of movements take over. You have segmentation contractions that just mix everything up, kind of like kneading dough. And then you have these slow churning movements called hustrations. Together, they allow all the water to get reabsorbed, and that watery slurry slowly turns into semi-solid waste. Now, here's a wild fact for you. While all this is going on, your gut is also a giant fermentation tank. And because of that, it produces a staggering amount of gas every single day, somewhere between 7 and 10 liters. But before you get too worried, here's the punchline. Of those 7 to 10 liters of gas, you only actually expel about half a liter. So what happens to the other 95%? Well, the vast majority of it just gets quietly absorbed back into your bloodstream, and you literally breathe it out. Your body is incredibly efficient, even with gas. And that brings us to our final big idea. This entire journey we've just followed, every single step, is controlled by this massive, independent network of nerves that lines your entire digestive tract. It's called the enteric nervous system. And get this, it contains as many neurons as your entire spinal cord. It senses, it thinks, and it acts all on its own to manage this whole process. So the question I want to leave you with is this. With that much raw processing power, is the gut truly our second brain?